So great to be with you guys and here today. But in reality, I am just one person representing a whole team of people. And in particular, I want to give thanks and credit to my colleague, Dr. Jane Mertz-Garcia, who is a professor in communication sciences and disorders and who could not be with me today. In particular as well, I want to thank the survivors and family members who have made TBI options possible, and our funder, the Rural Health and Safety Education Grant from USDA, but all of these other people that you see here on the screen who have made what you're going to see today possible. I have 5 points that I want to talk about today. Some of them we're going to spend just a little bit of time on. We're going to spend most of the time really getting into and exploring the video vignette part of the TBI Options program. And I want to give you a little bit of background about TBI Options promoting knowledge. I mentioned Dr. Garcia, who is a wonderful colleague in the School of Family Studies and Human Services. And she's a big advocate for cooperative extension. And about 5 years ago, she came to me and said, you know, I really think traumatic brain injury is an issue that cooperative extension ought to give some attention to. And I had to really think about that. Now, I've worked with people with disabilities for many years, as was mentioned. And Dr. Garcia has 20 years of experience working specifically with people with traumatic brain injury. And I had to do my own research about this when Dr. Garcia approached me about it. And what I realized was, because I mostly consider myself to be an aging person, well, we know that we're an aging society, well-known demographics. But also, did you know that 1 in 3 people over the age of 65 fall in any given year? And falls are the leading cause of traumatic brain injury. And that was really my aha moment, because what I realized is that traumatic brain injury is an emerging older adult issue. And when I looked around to see what support and resources were available out there, there wasn't much. The CDC has some information, but it's really pretty limited. Then we also have our military service members coming back from our current conflicts with traumatic brain injury, exposures to blasts being a signature injury of Iraq and Afghanistan. And of course, then there's the NFL, who's beginning to give the whole idea of concussions and head injury some attention, I guess I would say. So all of this really came together back in 2007, and Dr. Garcia and I began working together on this issue. We put together the first component of our program, which is called TBI Options Connecting to Resources, and for more information about that, you can visit me at the table afterwards. But then we received funding to develop TBI Options Promoting Knowledge, which is what we're talking about today. And the funding, as I mentioned, came from USDA. And the point of this is that we wanted to develop an educational program that we could take out, we being the cooperative extension system, to local communities. And agents could provide this program to their fellow citizens in their communities. But we've also developed and translated that field version, what we call a field version, into an automated online version. And the whole point, the goal really of TBI Options Promoting Knowledge, is to raise awareness of traumatic brain injury in local communities, and more specifically, what individuals and communities can do to help support survivors and family members of traumatic brain injury. That word survivor is utilized for someone who's experienced a TBI. I want to move on now and really talk to you a little bit about the video vignettes, which is, as I said, where we're really going to spend some time. And what we did, Dr. Garcia and I, is we had our educational objectives for the program. We knew what we wanted to get out in local communities. And one of the things that we were pretty sure would be powerful and impactful would be firsthand accounts from survivors. So we traveled around the state of Kansas and interviewed 14 different survivors and family members and friends about their experience. And what we did is we developed a questionnaire that we utilized in those interviews so that we could elicit the information that related to our educational objectives. I want to go ahead and introduce to you 3 Kansans, 3 survivors who are going to just introduce themselves to you and give you a feeling for who they are.
Change is hard for everybody. For a brain injury, wow.
You're just always struggling to overcome the next step. Just keep driving on, keep pushing forward.
One of the big issues I think needs to be fixed is for everybody outside that doesn't have anybody with a TBI have the information about it.
We created the video vignettes from scratch. As I said, we did the interviews, we traveled around the state, we had a wonderful colleague who transcribed these many, many hours of video for us. Then Dr. Garcia and a graduate student went through that transcript and really looked for the sections that captured our educational objectives that we had in the program. We put those together, we gave them to Brent Anders at the Office of Mediated Education and his staff, and they created video vignettes for us for each survivor. We created 5 video vignettes for each person. And that's because we had different educational objectives that we really wanted to illustrate. So at this point, what happens after we've done the introduction in our program is we have included interactive choice. So if I were giving a field version, if I were out in a community as an agent, I might have the audience vote. Which survivor story would you like to follow for the rest of the program? Because we do force a choice. It's very important to get a holistic view of that survivor's experience. Keeping that one survivor thread across all of the educational objectives is very important. For the online or automated version, the end user would simply click on the picture of the person that they want to follow. So that element of choice is really important here. We're going to pretend today that all of you have voted to go ahead and follow the second person, the volunteer firefighter. And what I want to do for you is just play a little bit more of some of that video. One of the things I'm going to do is play for you slides from the automated version. And it was a little tricky because what I did is we have different modules, and I picked out slides from one of the modules, and I eliminated some of the slides. But I wanted to give you a taste for how this works. So we are simply right now going to concentrate on one of the educational objectives that has to do with the consequences of a TBI. We're going to look at those slides that are very specific to the consequences, and then that concentrate on the consequences to relationships. We're going to skip some of the other stuff that's actually in the program because we have limited time today. And then we're going to play the video vignette that relates back to those slides and to that educational objective. I wanted to give you a little taste of what the program would actually be like.
The impact of TBI has a ripple effect through all aspects of a survivor's life, and his or her family as well. How the person was before the injury may be very different after the injury. The reality is that the impact of an injury, physical, cognitive, emotional, and behavioral changes, affect all aspects of everyday life, including relationships with family and friends, activities of daily living, and finding and keeping a job. In terms of relationships, if the survivor was the primary breadwinner and can no longer work, then that would significantly affect the family. If the survivor has experienced changes in thinking, then his or her ability to parent a child may change. Individuals and their family members sometimes comment on personality changes. For example, a person may seem more shy after the injury when he was previously more outgoing. All of these changes may affect friendships. They may also impact acceptance within the community when others don't understand the challenges of someone who experiences a TBI. The survivor will share some of the changes and consequences of a traumatic brain injury. After you watch the video, you'll be asked to take a few moments to reflect on what you've learned about changes and consequences.
Realizing that relationships are never static, you know, everybody's relationship is always change involved with that, everything. After a head injury, you need to be aware that the changes are going to come. Maybe they're going to be a little more dramatic than in your life, you know. Do you realize that? Yeah, I realize that the problems that I'm kind of dealing with are not problems that everybody else wants to deal with all the time too. And so some folks are not able to deal with the things I dealt with, that I'm dealing with, you know, they don't have the time or the inclination to deal with my problems. So I have to kind of step back from some relationships and maybe form new relationships with folks who realize what you had going before is not necessarily what's going to be the situation now. It changed a lot, and I realize that my attitude about this is probably still changing. So, but outside of my family, there are not a lot of relationships that were in existence before that are still in existence now in the same form. Prior to the injury, I was working as a flight instructor, professional pilot. With a head injury, you really can't, I mean, the risk of seizure is that such that you really cannot be a pilot effectively without passing a lot of tests, a lot of money involved, all these tests. So I do not do my formal career at this point. You know, that's just something that it's taken a long time and hard to deal with, but I've gotten there. So I find other things to do, and I now rely much more on technology to compensate for the struggles that are involved with having a head injury. And the memory is an issue, and I have to rely on my memory cues from my electronic devices more so than I did before. They were available to me before. It's a struggle, but you know.
That video clip, that video vignette, is one of our longer ones. Most of them fall between 3 and 4 minutes. And what we've done by following up the lecture with the video, now with a reflective question, is we're advancing the conceptual knowledge that that student or that participant in the program has learned and really asking them now to apply it to a real life situation. This gentleman that you see here is a neighbor. He's a Kansan who's experienced a traumatic brain injury. So I want to give you guys a little taste of that, and I know that you didn't have much of the conceptual because we only watched those 2 slides. But in terms of this question, and this is only one of the questions, we have others, what are some of your responses in terms of the video clip that you saw? Go ahead.
Okay, well, some of the relationships we have relate to, people you know at work, et cetera, and of course, since he was no longer able to do his regular job, yeah, it would be fairly hard for him to keep up social ties with the other pilots, for instance. So a fair number of the relationships we have are based on doing something, and if what you can do changes, that does put a dent in your social life.
That's a great response, and I'll just try to summarize that for the people for the videotape. But basically, you were saying that a lot of relationships have work ties, or we do something with a group, and if he can no longer fly, he may not be able to keep those same relationships. And he talks about that. He talks about the fact that relationships really have changed for him. And so we elicit this. We also didn't look at the work slides, but he talks a little bit about the consequences to his work life as well. So that's what we were trying to do here in terms of really applying or asking these reflective questions, asking the user to apply what they've learned in a very specific way. You might also have noticed that the video was captioned, and we just captioned all of our videos. You don't have a choice. That just comes with it, if you will. We really felt that these video vignettes were a very critical strategy in our educational program. They truly augment the learning of the user. And we think that what really makes the use of our videos different is that we've never seen them used in such a specific way, where we tie the conceptual learning to the video to the reflective questions. As we were developing the program, we did a lot of research, and there are videos of survivors talking about their experiences, but we were not able to really see this breakdown where we can advance that conceptual knowledge and apply it to a real-life situation as we've done here. I want to talk with you a little bit about the research study that we did, and there's a lot that I could say about the research study, but in terms of our focus today, which is really on the use of these video vignettes within our program, I just want to share those results with you specifically. We had 44 participants. We randomly assigned them to the field version and to the online automated version. And we did a pre and a post. And what we found out generally was that there was no statistically significant difference between both versions. So it didn't matter if you were in the field version, and I gave the field version, and then I also did the voice on the automated version. We tried to make those just as similar as we could. No real differences in knowledge gain. And what we found out is that knowledge gain did advance 1 to 2 levels in the research study. But specifically, people had very high ratings for overall effectiveness for the program. And in particular, the videos were one of our most highly rated items as well. We did some qualitative questioning where we tied the educational objectives into some of our research study questions. And what came back to us was the power and the impact that the video vignettes had on their learning. People would actually give us examples from the video vignettes as they were answering those particular questions. So, go ahead.
Let me ask one brief question about the way that the vignettes were compiled. Were they responding to interview questions?
They were. The question was whether or not, how the video vignettes were compiled and if they were responding to questions, and they were. We used the same questions for all of our survivors.
And your trial was also given those questions?
This research study was actually for the general public to test the program for us and to let us know where our strengths and weaknesses were and to give us an idea of whether or not people were actually learning. We also asked some questions about intent to change behavior as well, but I wasn't going to talk about those today as we're concentrating on the video vignettes, but thank you for that question. So the video vignettes, again, in the research study that we did, were shown to be really powerful and impactful for the learners. One of the things that came about that really surprised us was that we ended up with so much more than we anticipated putting this project together. And what Dr. Garcia found as she was looking at these video clips, she would say to me, boy, I wish I could really use this in class. Well, she can use it in class. I mean, our release that we had survivors and families sign allow us to do that. And in her 20 years of working within traumatic brain injury, she's never seen media clips that have worked so well in her curriculum. So that was something that we hadn't anticipated, but that's been a great boon for her. The other thing that happened when it comes to students is as we began to get into this program, we were thinking, boy, we really wish we could do a module on memory. Boy, we really wish we could do a module on assistive technology. Boy, we really wish we could do a module on TBI in older adults. Well, we started to do that because we gave graduate students in communication sciences and disorders the opportunity to do that as an honors project, as an example. And so they were able to go through the transcripts and the videos, and just like we did for our educational objectives, they came up with educational objectives for particular subjects within that bigger umbrella of traumatic brain injury. And we actually started a pilot project with the Office of Mediated Education on older adults and traumatic brain injury. So there were some opportunities academically that we hadn't anticipated. In terms of what we would like to see for the program, we're still under development. We have not rolled this program out officially. Our date for that is looking to be August of this year. But we interviewed, when we traveled around the state, we interviewed 14 different survivors and family members, and we're only going to be able to complete vignettes for 8 of them. So we would like to be able to augment our program by capturing those different perspectives. As an example, we have a mother with a teenage son who experienced a traumatic brain injury. We do have an older adult who had a fall. We have a gentleman who experienced a TBI as a teenager and has been living with that traumatic brain injury for 50 years. And that's a perspective that I really, really want to be able to capture. So that's one of our plans. We'd like to be able to finish up the 14 survivors and family members and friends that we currently have. Our second objective would be, as we were talking about the power of the video, and it was powerful for the public, and then we noticed that it was powerful for the students, we're thinking, you know, there's really probably some opportunity here to develop continuing education programs for healthcare professionals and human services professionals, and to be able to utilize the same model in terms of linking the videos to educational objectives and just bumping up the knowledge level and the educational level of what the general public would need versus what a student would need versus what a healthcare professional would need, and being able to move forward with that program as well. And we're currently looking for funding to be able to do that. I do want to leave a few minutes for questions, and my final thought for you would be, in creating the program, which is really about raising awareness of survivors and family members who are experiencing traumatic brain injury, and really helping individuals and communities know what they can do. That's a part of the program we haven't talked about today, but it's a big component, is teaching people how you can be supportive in your own local community. So we hope that we have a positive message of hope, and that we're utilizing technology, creating these video vignettes from scratch of our Kansas neighbors to really make it not conceptual knowledge, but real life knowledge and real life application. And we hope that by doing that, we are inspiring people across the state of Kansas to think differently about people with disabilities, about survivors, and about family members, and to break down some of those stereotypes that we know exists. And so I wanted just to end with this video clip of one of our other survivors because I think it's such a powerful, positive message. And then I'll take your questions.
Because I don't look at anything like, oh, I can't do that, I'm in a chair. I always look at things like, I want to do that. Let's figure out how to do it.